Hello retro gaming fans, today we're going to be taking a look at a new retro game coming out on multiple platforms, and that game is Black Jewel Reborn. And no, don't worry, it's not another Match 3 puzzle game. Instead, it's an action platforming game with a barbarian setting, giving it a lot of Rust-on vibes, and it's a remake of a 2017 Steam game that was made as a love letter to Commodore 64 games. So while I did grow up with a Commodore 64 in my house and it is some of my earliest gaming memories, I have a bit more of a nostalgic connection to later generations. This on top of the fact that I have played the original Black Jewel, and let's just say that it does have some flaws and could have been a bit better, make it so that being remade for Sega Genesis / Mega Drive and Super Nintendo is a lot more appealing to me. Black Jewel Reborn is being made by PSCD Games, which is a small group that has been making games for the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive for a number of years now. The first project that they started work on was BioEvil, a demake of Resident Evil for the Genesis, and they also have multiple other games that they are currently developing. Multiple other crowd-funded games on Kickstarter include Hunter Girls, a kind of, I don't want to call it endless runner since there are levels to it, but a runner game where you control 3 different girls, each with their own abilities, and Cyber Mission, which is a Forgotten Worlds type arcade-style shooter. These games, as well as others, have all had successful campaigns on Kickstarter, and that's due to a few reasons. One of which is that they're not asking a ton of money in the grand scheme of things, so it's an easier goal to hit, and also they get help from other companies. As far as I can tell, PSCD Games is based out of Russia, which doesn't allow for Kickstarter to be used, so this means that somebody else has to step in and run the campaign for them. In the case of Black Jewel Reborn, it was done through the owner of Dragon Box, an online retro shop that's also known for doing the Open Pandora and Pyra hardware. This partnership makes total sense to me because if you're somebody who's selling hardware that plays retro games, why not help make more games available? So yes, Black Jewel Reborn was yet another successful Kickstarter campaign for the company, and it seems to be their most ambitious game yet and the one I'm looking the most forward to. On top of being developed for the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo Entertainment System, they are also making ports for the NES as well as the Game Boy, and they are all getting physical releases. The developers of Black Jewel Reborn have teamed up with original Black Jewel creator Oscar Celestini to help port the game, which meant improving the overall presentation as well as adding a second character. The story is about Dark Core, who stole the Black Jewel from the ancient Temple of Power. He's going to use it to overwhelm all the people of the kingdom and become its sole ruler. Ryan and Julia are the strongest warriors, and, well, let's take a second, really? Those are the names, Ryan and Julia? Alright, whatever. Ryan is a barbarian, and Julia is an Amazon, which is the added second character, and they are the only ones that courageously decided to oppose the dark plans of the enemy. The mighty swordsman warrior and the invincible Amazon with the whip are already on the trail of Dark Core, ready to eradicate his army of monstrous creatures and bring the Black Jewel back to the temple. It's nothing special, but, you know, it's there. And the nice thing about adding a second character is that now not only are there 2 different ways for you to be able to play the game on your own, they've also added a 2-player co-op mode, which means you can play with a friend, and that always makes games more fun to me. Starting with the NES version, obviously this is going to be the most simplistic, at least of the ones that I was able to play, as the Game Boy version doesn't currently have a demo, they just have some screenshots up on their page. So you have the A button is jump, your B button is attack, and you can press select to do a magic spell which calls upon your god to help you, destroying everything on the screen. While it can be argued that these NES-style graphics aren't as good as the original's Commodore 64-style graphics, the gameplay itself does run a lot faster and a lot smoother, which just overall makes things feel a lot more responsive and, well, fun to play. The original game's soundtrack has been ported over perfectly to the NES sound chip, and quite frankly, I can just say right now that going forward, the music is a highlight of this game no matter which platform you're playing on. The Sega Genesis soundtrack was my personal favorite, but that's just because I'm super biased and I just love the sound to it. And the Genesis version also just so happens to be the one that's furthest along in development. obviously going to get a major graphical upgrade on the Genesis over the NES. While the characters aren't overly large, they are well animated and the fast-paced gameplay is still there. Coinciding with the improved animation is the fact that there are more attacks for you to do, and the extra buttons on the controller allowed for more options as well. Circling back to the music that I also love while playing this game, even in the demo, it gives you the choice to be able to go into the options menu and listen to the different tracks of music. Onto the demo for Super Nintendo, it was the one that was most recently released not all that long ago, as they just added a Super Nintendo programmer to their team. It's nowhere near as far along. For example, there's no title music and no sounds in-game, but the music is still there while you play, and definitely a lot of the gameplay is there, minus the fact that there is no special implemented, which I'm assuming will be the Y button because A is jump, B is attack, and X is magic. The graphics on the Super Nintendo port, even in its earlier state, do seem to be quite a bit improved over the Genesis version. As to be expected, you have more colorful and brighter sprites, as well as characters that even seem to be a bit bigger, although the trade-off seems to be that it's more of a zoomed view, so you see less of the level at once. No matter which version you're looking forward to playing it on most, unfortunately they are all still very much in development, with the one furthest along being the Genesis one at about 80% complete. In the meantime, feel free to look at the links below in the description to be able to download the demos yourself, and they each also include the option of giving a donation if you'd like to help support along the way. Personally, I'm looking forward to playing on all platforms, as they each have their own unique flavor of nostalgia to go along with them, and I just love the fact that new games are still being made for old hardware. Let us know in the comments below. Which version of the demo did you try, and what did you think? Is this going to be a game that you're going to be buying down the road, and which platform are you going to buy it on? Thanks again for watching, and until next time, enjoy gaming.